Welcome to our channel, The Soulless World and Monsters. If this is your first time visiting, I am David, the one who guides you into the mysterious stories. Come in and prepare yourself to face the mysterious spirits. And now, without making you wait any longer, we will immediately explore a haunting ghost story from the Northern Delta, where every secret can make you shiver. The saying, village temple, is probably not too strange anymore. The village temple is not only a sacred place of worship for the community, but also a space for spiritual and cultural activities, a bond between the community and a cultural and religious institution among the people. The communal house is a public house of the Vietnamese village community that has existed for a long time. Each Vietnamese village temple worships one or more gods chosen by the villagers as the village guardian gods, called the village's Than Hoang god. Village temples refer to temples in each village in the countryside. Village temples are different from village temples because they are temples built to worship someone. The objects of worship of the temples are very diverse, often shown in the name of the temple. Leo was a young man born and raised in a rural area in the Northern Delta. Although over the years Leo has become a grown man, the memories of his childhood and his mischievous times are still in his mind. Sometimes things pass, but become things that are regretted too late. Is that Leo? Are you taking your son home for summer vacation to visit your grandparents? On the main road, Mr. Bay had just come home from work in the fields and saw Leo and his son standing at the intersection, so he stopped his car to say hello. Leo turned to pat the boy's head standing next to him, pointed at the muddy man and said, "Yes, during the summer vacation, I'm letting Duke come home to visit his grandparents for a few days. Say hello to Mr. Bay, son." "Hello, Mr. Bay. My son Leo is such a good boy. He's grown up a lot lately, hasn't he?" Mr. Bay nodded and smiled at the boy, then looked at Leo and said, "Where's Duke's mother? Isn't she coming back with you two?" "Yes, my family has been busy with work lately. We've been on business trips all the time, so we haven't been able to come home, Uncle. Uncle Bay seems to be fatter these days than when you came back for Tet, doesn't he?" Mr. Bay waved his hand and said, "Oh, at this age, being fat is no longer important. Be careful or you'll get diabetes. So should we go home now? Why don't we come over to my house for a drink?" "Oh no, I told my grandparents to cook and wait for me at noon. I guess you asked for permission, so I can't come over. We can have a drink later this evening. When you get home, please help me take Duck back to my grandparents' house. I have something to do, so I'll be back later." Mr. Bay happily nodded and turned to wave to Duke. The motorbike quickly went straight into the village. Leo watched Mr. Bay's back for a while, then turned to look at the temple in the distance. It was a fairly old temple, located right in the middle of the field. Leo took a box of cakes out of his pocket and walked straight towards the temple. After lighting incense on the altar, Leo bowed his head and went outside to look at the temple and the mossy wall. Leo recalled his childhood days. A series of memories suddenly flooded into his mind. Remembering that time, also in this place, close friends often invited each other to play soccer. "Leo, let's go out to the empty field to play soccer this afternoon. The guys from the upper village invited us. This afternoon, our village is playing against their village." At noon, after finishing school, Leo went straight home. Leo's house was quite close to the school, so Leo just walked. Nate stood far away and saw Leo, so he immediately called Kai to come over. That afternoon, his village was playing soccer with some guys from the neighboring village. This was not the first time the two villages played soccer together, so it wasn't too surprising to Leo. Leo calmly nodded and said, "What time is it? Have you told Kai and Ted yet? Are they going?" "I've called enough people. Not a single one is missing. Without enough people, how can we play against them? Remember to go. You're the only one who knows how to play goal. We have to take revenge for the last match they won against us." "Go then go. Why be afraid of them?" "What time?" 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock to finish early. You guys still have to go swimming in the river." "Okay. So at 2 o'clock, We gathered at the field. Leo was so engrossed in talking to Nate that he didn't notice when we had arrived at the end of the alley. That afternoon, as scheduled, Leo was present at the empty field at 2 o'clock. The whole group gathered and started planning to play with the neighboring village. That afternoon, perhaps because Leo's group had the idea of revenge, they played very enthusiastically, and in no time, Leo's group had led by 5 goals. Then the neighboring village asked for permission to give up and go home. They shouted and celebrated with their friends and stayed at the empty field to play. Late in the afternoon, the whole group went outside to the bridge to bathe in the river near the empty field. Back then, near the vacant lot, there was a temple which, according to Leo and his friends, was called the Temple of the Three Ladies. Leo once asked his mother why it was called the Temple of the Three Ladies. Leo's mother told him that many years ago, 3 women were digging for snails and drowned in the river. Then their bodies floated down the village river and were picked up by the villagers. But in the following days, the ghosts of the 3 women kept haunting that area, teasing the villagers. So the villagers decided to build a temple to worship them and named it the Temple of the Three Ladies. Leo's mother also told them that the Temple of the Three Ladies was very sacred and that they should not go near the temple. But children, who were at the most mischievous age, never believed in their parents' warnings. Leo and his friends often teased each other around the temple every day, and then what had to happen happened. "Hey guys, let's go to Barco Temple and find something to eat." Yesterday, on the full moon day, everyone offered a lot of delicious food. As soon as Kai gave his idea, the whole group immediately went outside Barco Temple. Just as Kai said, inside the temple, fruits and candies were lined up. Each group found what they liked and happily brought it out to the front of the temple to eat together. This wasn't the first time Leo and his friends had done this, so they didn't hold back at all. The group was still happily eating when Ted timidly said, "My mum said, you can't come here and take food like this because your father here is very sacred." Kai was still chewing the last piece of chocopi in his mouth when he heard Ted say that and couldn't help but laugh. The cake flew out of his mouth and flew everywhere. He held his stomach and pointed at Ted and laughed. "So, you believe your mom? My mom said the same thing, but I eat there all the time and it's okay. I don't believe in ghosts in this world." "Don't you believe what I say? Do you believe that it's okay for me to pee in the temple right now?" Nate, who had been quiet all this time, heard that and looked at Kai and challenged him. "I dare you to pee. If you dare, I'll call you brother." Leo on the side was not to be outdone and said, "Yes, yes, if you dare to pee, we will make you the boss." Along with that, the whole group simultaneously challenged Kai. At first, Kai was hesitant, but with his childish and competitive nature, he glared at his friends and said, "If you want to pee, then pee. What am I afraid of? But after I pee, do you dare to do the same?" The whole group kept challenging each other without knowing that the story was getting further and further away. Finally, Kai went into the temple, pulled down his pants, and peed straight towards the altar of the Three Ladies. Then he walked outside with a smug look on his face. Seeing that Kai had dared to do it, Nate, Leo, and a few others also peed outside the temple. Then they turned around to leave when suddenly Ted's voice rang out in panic. "Guys! Guys! Nate! What's wrong with Nate?" Seeing that, Leo and his friends turned around in shock. Nate was lying in front of the temple. His eyes rolled back and twitched as if he had been electrocuted. At the same time, foam kept coming out of his mouth and dripping onto the ground. Seeing Nate suddenly like that, Leo and his group were terrified. They could only stand there and watch Nate lying on the ground until Leo spoke up. "Hurry up and run home and call his parents. Kai and you guys stay here and watch him. Ted and I will run back to find someone to save him." Then Leo and Ted ran straight to Nate's house. About the same time, Nate's father came out. Nate was now completely unconscious, his eyes rolled back and white. Seeing that, Nate's father immediately picked him up and ran home. At Nate's house, his grandfather, Mr. Frank, looked at the group and asked, "So what did you guys do that made Nate fall down like this?" Sui, who was by his side, quickly recounted everything, but he only dared to say that they took food from there to eat, not daring to mention that they peed in the temple of the three ladies. When Mr. Huan heard what happened, he sighed, turned to look at Uncle Will, Nate's father, and said bluntly, "Your son was beaten by the three ladies. Quickly tell his mother to go buy offerings and come back here later to follow me out there to apologize to them. What a foolish son." According to Mr. Frank, Uncle Will said, "Yes," and hurriedly ran outside. Mr. Frank looked at the children in front of him and said helplessly, "It's late. You guys should go home quickly, or your parents will worry. From now on, you can't go out there and play around like that again, understand? The temple of the three ladies is a sacred temple. If you mess around, the ladies will break your neck, understand? Yes, we won't dare again. We'll say goodbye to you. We're going home." Leo and his friends hurriedly ran away. They pulled each other to a corner and sat and talked animatedly until late at night before saying goodbye to each other and leaving. Late that afternoon, Mr. Frank and Uncle Will brought the offering trays to the outside of the Beiko temple to apologize. After burning incense and praying, the two of them turned around and left. But then, when they had just walked a short distance, a cold laugh rang out right behind them, causing both Mr. Frank and Uncle Will to turn back in surprise. On the roof of the temple, a woman wearing white clothes had appeared, sitting precariously on top of the temple. The wind blew hard, causing the woman's white dress to flutter. Her long black hair covered half of her face, occasionally being blown by the wind to reveal a pale, pale face, looking at Mr. Frank and his son and laughing shrilly. Seeing that, Mr. Frank quickly pulled Uncle Will's hand and said, "Go, go, go quickly, hurry." Mr. Frank pulled Uncle Will quickly towards the village. At home, Nate was lying on the bed when he suddenly sat up, looked around the house as if he was looking for something, and muttered, Who peed on my face? I'll kill that person." After saying that, he fell back onto the bed and gradually woke up. At the same time, Mr. Huan and Uncle Will also arrived home. Seeing that Nate was awake, Mr. Huan breathed a sigh of relief. As a result, that night, Nate was beaten by Uncle Will, and he remembered it for the rest of his life. As for Leo, after saying goodbye to his friends and going home when it was getting dark, Leo had to pass a rather large fish pond on his way home, which was the old cooperative's fish pond. Leo was humming along until he heard someone calling him, a very ghostly voice that seemed to penetrate deep into his mind. "Lo, lo, someone come down here, come down here. Leo." Who is that?" Leo looked around and tried to call out but saw no one. Thinking that someone was teasing him, Leo raised his voice and said, "Hey, who's teasing me? I'm not scared." After saying that, Leo turned around and left. The sound rang out again. This time, Leo determined that the voice was coming from the lake. He turned around and looked straight at the lake. In the middle of the lake, a dark figure appeared, waving at Leo and calling, come here, Leo." Leo was mesmerized, his whole body absent-mindedly walking towards the other person. He kept walking and walking until he was submerged in the water, when suddenly a hand grabbed his collar and pulled him back. That pull startled Leo awake. He turned around and saw that the person grabbing his neck was Uncle Bay. He asked in confusion, Uncle Bay, why are you here?" Uncle Bay looked at Leo and asked back, "I should be asking you this question. What are you doing out here at night? I called you a few times but you didn't answer. What's wrong with you?" Uncle, there's someone calling me. I didn't hear anything. When I heard someone standing outside calling me, then I'm standing here with you." Uncle Bay heard Leo's story and immediately understood the problem. He pulled him up and said, You were led into the water by a ghost, my child. Hurry up and follow me home. Why did you forbid me from coming out this late? Luckily, I was there. Otherwise, you would have been drowned by that ghost, my child. Then Uncle Bay took Leo straight home. Uncle Bay's house was next to Leo's, so when he dropped him off, he went straight home. That night after dinner, Leo went back to his room to get his books and study. Back then, Leo was very studious, always at the top of Ted's grade, so no matter what happened, Leo's parents only gave him a few quick reminders and didn't beat him as much as his friends of the same age. Leo studied straight through until late at night. When the clock just struck 12, the bell from the wall clock rang out. Leo stretched out to close his books and go to bed, when suddenly a voice rang out from outside. "Leo, Leo, come out, Leo, Leo." The voice startled Leo and made him turn around. Leo walked to the window and looked through the crack. Outside the gate, a woman wearing a white outfit appeared, standing in front of the gate, looking into the house. It seemed like she knew Leo was right behind the door. The woman pointed at the door and beckoned. Come out with me, I'll take you to eat candy." Then the woman seemed to go crazy. She rushed through the gate, her body staggering towards the window. Until the woman's figure was only a few steps away from the window, it seemed like someone from behind Leo pulled him back. The voice of Mr. Thong, Leo's father, rang out. "It's late. What are you standing here looking out for, son? Go to bed. You have school tomorrow." Yes, I'm going to sleep right now." Leo nodded to Mr. Thong and turned to go back to bed. Before leaving, Leo did not forget to look back at the window one more time. It seemed that Leo could still feel that woman standing there, peeping into the room. Thinking of this, Leo shivered. He rushed to bed and covered himself with the blanket. The summer weather was hot and sultry. Leo couldn't bear to cover himself with the blanket, but thinking about the scene outside that was looking at him, he didn't dare to take the blanket off. Or what if there was something standing next to his bed right now? It would be even scarier. Thoughts kept appearing in his head. After thinking for a while, Leo took a risk and went to the end of the bed to cover himself with the blanket. Leo started to turn on the fan. The gentle wind blowing made Leo gradually fall asleep. In the middle of the night, the space outside was quiet. Suddenly, the dog lying on the porch started to make a loud noise. Along with that, the sound of footsteps gradually appeared outside Leo's room. The footsteps walked back and forth in front of the window. Then suddenly a sound rang out as if something was tapping on the window. 3 cold knock, knock, knock sounds echoed straight into Leo's room. Along with that ghostly voice rang out again. "Leo, Leo." The voice gradually woke Leo up. Leo looked towards the window, vaguely seeing something white looming outside through the crack in the door. Then the voice continued to ring out. Come out, I'll give you candy." No, I won't come out," Leo said, trembling, and crawled under the blanket. Outside, the dog howled loudly, right next to the window. A shrill laugh rang out again, followed by footsteps, but this time the footsteps gradually faded away, and then stopped. Seeing that the footsteps had gone, Leo opened the blanket to look outside, and after a while, hearing no movement, Leo sighed in relief and crawled back into the blanket to sleep. When Mrs. Tom woke up and saw her son still sleeping in the room, she immediately went to wake him up. Leo probably felt very tired because he hadn't slept all night. He lazily got up and said, "Yes, I'm up." That morning, Leo went to school as usual. As soon as he got to class, he saw his friends standing around talking about something. But before he could go over to talk, the school bell rang. Leo grabbed Kai and ran quickly into the classroom. In the afternoon, as if scheduled, Leo and his friends went out to the big river to swim. Right at the big river, there was a fairly high bridge that was also the gathering place for the group's risky acrobatic performances. Nate stood right on the top of the bridge, patting his chest and looking at his friends, shouting loudly, "Look at the big guy in the slum preparing to do a 3-round water dance." Then he bowed his head and somersaulted before the applause and shouts of his friends. Leo was not a mischievous person, so he only dared to jump normally and did not dare to do risky stunts like Nate or Kai. The group was still happily swimming when suddenly Ted stood on the bridge, pointed at Kai and shouted loudly, "Kai! Kai! Where are you going? Come back here! It's too deep out there!" "Don't go out there, Kai." Ted had always been the most reckless one in the group. No matter how Ted called him, he swam further away. Suddenly, Ted's face turned pale. He trembled and pointed at Kai and shouted, Fuck! Kai, there's someone next to you. There's a woman standing next to you, Kai. Come back quickly, Kai." After Ted said that, the whole group turned to look in Kai's direction, but saw no one. Seeing that, Kai became even more mischievous. He raised his hands to the sky, pretending to be drowning. He started to mumble, "Oh, help, help. There's a woman drowning me. Oh." After Kai's words, the whole group burst out laughing again. Ted tried to call out helplessly but still couldn't. Suddenly, Kai raised his hand and shouted loudly, "Help! Help me! Help me!" Then Kai's whole body gradually sank below the water's surface. The Leo group still thought that Kai was joking, so they laughed even louder. On the shore, Ted seemed to be the most confused person. He tried to shout, "Kai was pulled down by that woman. Hurry up and save him. I'm not joking. Save Kai." Leo and his friends ignored Ted above. No matter what he said, they didn't care because they knew Kai was a good swimmer. It was impossible for him to drown. But then, after a long time, they still didn't see Kai come up. Then, they started to worry. Nate and Dewey hurriedly swam around to look for him, while Leo and the others tried to call out, "Kai! Kai! Where are you? Kai! Kai!" The group called out, but this time the only response was terrifying silence. The group searched for a long time, but still couldn't find Kai. Then Ted spoke up and said, "Guys, I think we should run back and call the adults to come look for us. Kai really drowned." Hearing Ted, the whole group immediately pulled themselves to the shore and ran straight back to the village. Everyone's face was pale with worry. About 30 minutes later, more and more villagers poured out along both sides of the river. People divided up. Some held nets. Some went to close the drains to prevent Kai's body from floating away. Those who were good at diving dived to search. The whole village searched together, but still couldn't find Kai's body. Along both sides of the river, chaos ensued. Some said Kai's body might have drifted out to the big river. Some said a ghost or demon hid it, so it hadn't been found yet. Everyone divided up to search until dusk. At that time, on the street, there was a woman riding a bicycle passing by. She looked like a market vendor. The woman stopped right at the bridge, where Leo and his group had jumped off earlier, and calmly said, "You guys can't find him. Tell your family to go get the pillow he used to rest on and bring it to this river and release it. Release it from this bridge until the pillow stops somewhere. Then have someone search that part and you'll find his body. Before you leave, remember to light incense and ask the ancestors for their blessings. That shrine over there is very sacred. If this kid offends someone and pees or shits on their face, they'll be taken away. Also, remember to bring offerings and make an altar to ask them, otherwise many more will die." After saying that, she turned to look straight at Leo and his friends, making everyone shiver. The woman spoke for a while, then turned around and rode her bike away. Following the woman, everyone immediately sent someone to run to Kai's house to get the pillow he had used the night before, and then brought it to the middle of the bridge to drop it. The strange thing was that when the pillow was dropped, it was able to float upstream and wash up on the shore about a kilometer away from where Leo and his friends were bathing. Everyone started to rush down to search. Less than 5 minutes later, someone emerged from under the water and shouted, I saw, Kai's body is here, everyone." Immediately, 1 or 2 people rushed to help the young man bring Kai's body to the shore. Leo and his friends were there. Kai's body was pale, his face was green in some places, and mud was coming out of his mouth and nose, giving off a foul smell. Some people even scooped up river water to pour over Kai before carrying his body back to the village. Kai's body was placed on the bed. He died in a sitting position, one leg straight and the other bent, his two arms hugging that leg, as if something had happened to him before he died. When Kai's body was brought home, some elders began to rub oil and massage Kai's body to straighten it out. Leo and the children were yelled at, so they had to go home first. As soon as they got home, Mrs. Tom called Leo inside to ask what had happened. After hearing Leo tell her everything, Mrs. Tom worriedly said, "So Kai was taken away. You know what I forbid? From now on, you are not allowed to bathe in that river anymore. That place has become a curse, my child. Hurry up and go inside. Take a bath and come out to wait for your father to come home for dinner. Your father will probably be home soon. Hurry up, or you will be beaten up when he comes back." Leo had always been afraid of being beaten by his father. He quickly ran to grab his clothes and ran into the bathroom. That night after dinner, Leo returned to his desk, but Kai's image kept appearing in his mind. From Kai's sudden disappearance to his pale green body, when people pulled him up, it seemed to be deeply engraved in Leo's mind. Then he suddenly felt afraid. He didn't know what he was afraid of, but this feeling made him very afraid. Maybe he was afraid that he would be like Kai. This invisible fear haunted the soul of a child like him. After a few hours of studying but couldn't concentrate, he was so tired that he went to bed early. The night fell, bringing with it the summer breeze. At midnight, outside the gate, a woman and a child appeared, along with Kai's familiar voice. "Leo, I'm so cold. So cold, Leo." Kai's call startled Leo awake. He went out the window and looked at him. Kai was now drenched, his face pale. It was Kai who was standing right outside Leo. He looked at his friend and asked, "Hey, why are you here so late? Go home. If anything happens, we'll see you after school. Why are you all wet? Go home. I can't go." Leo seemed to have completely forgotten that Kai had drowned this afternoon. He was still standing by the window, talking to his friend. He waved his hand at Leo and called out, "Come with me. I'm so bored out here. Come out with me. Go swim in the river with me." Where can you wait at a time like this? Are you crazy? Why is Kai swimming in the river at a time like this? Go home, or else if my dad hears, he'll beat you both up. Kai looked at Leo with a sad expression. He turned and left. Seeing his friend suddenly leave like that, Leo was afraid that he would be angry with him, so he took a risk and opened the door and tiptoed outside, trying to chase after Kai's shadow. "Kai, wait for me, wait for me." The more Leo tried to chase after him, the faster his shadow went. In no time, Leo ran after him to the riverbank. Kai was standing in the middle of the river, turning to Leo and waving, come down here and play with me. I'm alone here. I'm so sad. Come down here and play with me, Leo." Leo was as if his soul was captivated. He absent-mindedly walked to the riverbank, but then a light shone straight into his eyes, causing him to suddenly wake up. The fishing boat came right next to him, and with him, Ty's voice rang out. "Leo, what are you doing standing out on the river in the middle of the night?" Seeing Uncle Ty, a villager, Leo greeted him. "Yes, sir." "Hello, Uncle Ty. Kai called me out here to play with him, but I don't know where he ran off to." Hearing Leo mention Kai, Uncle Ty vaguely guessed who he was, so he asked again, "Is Kai the son of Mrs. Fan?" "Yes, he was my classmate." Leo nodded and said. Uncle Ty heard this and vaguely guessed everything. He hurriedly said, "You go home quickly. He drowned this afternoon and you were lured away by a ghost. Go home, I'll take you home. You'll die like this." Then Uncle Ty temporarily took the boat to the shore and took Leo back home. As soon as he got to the end of the alley, he saw his parents and a few people holding lanterns. Running everywhere, he saw him. The wise man immediately ran over and beat him up, shouting, "Count the days. Where have you been, son? You're very good at this religion. Follow me home today, and I'll have to beat your mother up." Uncle Ty, who was on the side, hurriedly went to stop Mr. Thong and explained, Mr. Thong, calm down. I see that this is not your aunt's fault. But this is partly your husband and wife's fault, Uncle. What do you mean by that, and why did you go with my son Leo? Uncle Tai gestured for Mr. Thong to go somewhere and then talk to him. He told Mr. Thong everything. Mr. Thong now understood why his son aunt had sneaked out in the middle of the night. Mr. Thong thanked Mr. Tai and turned to his aunt Leo and said, "Go home quickly. Next time you go out at night, your father will beat you to death. Understand?" Yes, he followed behind Mr. Thong back home. Mr. Thong used a lock to lock all the doors in the house. Mrs. Tom saw that and was surprised and asked, "Oh, what are you doing locking the front and back doors like this, sir?" Mr. Thong looked at his son and sighed. "Go to your room and let your parents talk outside." Seeing his son had gone into the room, Mr. Thong began to speak. "Kai, the son of a rich family, called my son out tonight. His friends must be attached to him, so they want to take him with them. Tomorrow, I'll go to the market to buy some fruit and some candy. Go over there and burn incense and pray for him to spare my son Leo. For now, just lock the door like this. If he accidentally takes my son away, it will be too late to regret." Mrs. Tom was terrified when she heard that Kai covered his eyes and took his son away. She looked worriedly at Leo's door and sighed, then returned to her room. In the room, Leo just got into bed and was snoring. But then he saw outside the gate a woman was using a whip to continuously beat Kai. She beat Kai so hard that she continuously beat Kai, forcing him to kneel down and beg. The sound of the beating kept ringing out, along with Kai's begging, as if it was drilling deep into Leo's head on the bed. Leo turned his head left and right. His mouth kept muttering, Kai, run, Kai. Don't hit my friend. I beg you, don't hit my friend." The dream of Kai being beaten kept repeating in Leo's head until the next morning. The alarm clock from the Casio watch made Leo wake up with a start. He crawled out of bed, but then he remembered that today was the weekend and he didn't have to go to school outside. Mrs. Tom had cooked rice and water. Seeing him, she happily said, "Wash your face and come out to have breakfast, my child." Leo quickly ran into the house. That morning, Leo and a few friends from the village went to Kai's house to see him off for the last time. They all stood in a line in front of Kai's house, but everyone was very sad. Perhaps losing their friend from the day they were born was a great shock to them. The group was still standing together. Suddenly, Ted spoke up and asked, "Have you seen Dewey? We clearly agreed to meet here this morning. I still haven't seen him since morning, right?" Nate looked around and said calmly, "Maybe he hasn't made it yet, or his parents won't let him." "Oh well, never mind, why bother? If he doesn't come, then we can just send Kai off." The group nodded in agreement and started waiting again. About an hour later, outside the yard, people shouted loudly, causing Leo's group to rush out. They only saw Thao with a shocked face. Kai pointed out to the street and said tremblingly, Guys, that guy Dewey from Hoa's family, he was hit and killed by a car on the main road, guys. Right at the intersection that turns into our village road." Aunt Hoa was preparing a feast in the yard when she heard that and fainted. She tried to brace herself and rushed outside. Everyone followed her. Outside on the main road, the truck was stopped in the middle of the road. Underneath the truck was Dewey's bicycle and his body lying underneath. Only Dewey's entire body was crushed by the truck, blood flowing all over the road. At this moment, Ms. Hoa seemed to have gone crazy, going crazy, rushing towards the truck and crying, "Oh, my child, can anyone save my child? Save my child. Everyone! Dewey, oh Dewey, don't leave me, my child. Brother, come back and see your child, brother. Why is my fate so miserable, everyone? Everyone, my child isn't dead. Isn't he dead, everyone?" Mrs. Hoa's cries continued to echo with sorrow. Some people who witnessed the incident from the beginning began to tell, "You guys weren't here so you wouldn't know. The truck came from far away and my son Dewey came from here. I don't understand why. The car horn was honking loudly, but the boy acted as if someone was blinded. He rushed out and blocked the truck. At that time, I didn't expect this to happen, otherwise I would have rushed out and blocked his car. This is definitely spiritual, because car horns are deafening, so why couldn't he hear it? Some people who witnessed the incident all spoke up in unison to confirm. Dui's body was brought home shortly after. Miss Hua was so sad that she fainted. So in one day, 2 children's funerals took place at the same time. But perhaps the most haunting thing at this time was Leo and his friends. The deaths of 2 best friends happened right before their eyes. That evening, both Kai and Dewey were taken to the cemetery for burial. After taking their friend out of the cemetery, Leo's group stayed until the end before heading home. The road from the cemetery passed by the Barco temple. When the group was nearing the temple, Ted suddenly trembled and said, "Guys, is it possible that Kai and Dewey died because they peed inside the Barco temple? The other day, Kai was drowned in the water, and I clearly saw a woman drown him. That woman looked scared. Her face was pale, and her long black hair looked terrifying. And Dewey too. Why did he run into a car and die? Is it possible that we will be the next ones to be arrested? You guys." After Ted finished speaking, the boys all fell silent. It seemed like they had all thought about this, especially Nate and Leo, the 2 of them who were teased the most. Even though they thought like that, they didn't know how to face this matter. To reassure his friends, Leo sighed and said, "It's probably just a coincidence. It's not what we think. Let it be. It will come. There's nothing you can do about it." Ted suddenly had an idea, he said. "Why don't we go to the temple to burn incense and apologize? I'm sure they won't take it personally, because we're children, right?" Hearing what Ted said was right, the whole group agreed immediately. So 5 or 6 of them went into the temple to burn incense and pray. After burning incense, they went outside. But then at that moment, 3 women with disheveled hair appeared from inside the temple, sitting on the altar and laughing loudly. Each incense stick that Leo's group had just lit suddenly went out. The laughter of the 3 women made Leo's group startled and turned back to witness the scene before their eyes. The whole group ran away. Each of them ran with all their might. Some ran so hard that they lost their sandals, but because they were too scared, they didn't dare to turn back to claim them. They just ran straight back to the village. Each of them ran straight to their own house. No one dared to look back. When Leo ran home, he saw his mother and father sitting on the porch waiting for him. Mrs. Tom looked at her son, who was pale and running like he was being chased by a ghost, and asked, "What are you doing that you're running like you're being chased by a ghost? Come here quickly so we can talk to you." Running all the way made him exhausted and out of breath. He went to sit down next to his father and tried to catch his breath. Mr. Thong, who was beside him, looked at him and asked, "Dad asked you this. Do you have to tell him the truth?" Leo turned to look at Mr. Thong nodded, but then his face showed a bit of fear. He knew his son was afraid of being blamed, so he spoke up to comfort him. "Dad promises not to hit you, but you have to tell me everything. Did you guys do anything else besides eating cakes from the Barco temple the other day?" "Yes, we—" Leo stuttered, not daring to tell, but with the encouragement of Mr. Thong and Mrs. Tom, he told the whole story. After listening to Leo's story, Mr. Thong now understood the reason why Kai and Dui died in such a suspicious way. He went down to the kitchen, took out his bicycle, and told Leo to get on it. He took him to the house of the children who were present that day, outside the temple, and made an appointment for everyone to meet at Mr. Huan's house. At Mr. Huan's house, all the children admitted to everything they had done. Mr. Huan sighed and said, "No wonder that day when we brought offerings to express our gratitude, that person appeared and threatened us. You guys really committed a great sin." Mr. Thong worriedly said, "So what do you think we should do now? If we keep going like this, something will probably happen again." Mr. Huan looked at everyone and started to give his opinion. Everyone there agreed with Mr. Huan's way of doing things. After the discussion, Mr. Thong took Leo back home. That night, perhaps for some reason, Leo forgot to close the window. Outside, the woman's shadow appeared again, This time not one, but 3 people standing right next to the window, along with screams. You dare piss on my face, I'll kill every single one of you. Come out! Come out! The screams startled Leo awake. Looking out the window, he saw 3 pale-faced women with long fingernails pointing at his bed and scratching. Terrified, Leo screamed loudly. His screams startled Mr. Thong, who was sleeping in the next room, and he ran over, turning on the room's lights immediately. Seeing Leo sitting curled up in the corner of the bed, Mr. Thong walked over and asked, "What's wrong, son? Why are you screaming so loudly at night?" Leo cried, Dad, there are 3 women standing at the window trying to kill me. I'm so scared." Looking out the window, Mr. Thong seemed to understand the problem. He went to lock the door and told Leo to lie down on the bed. He would sleep with him tonight. The next day, as planned at Mr. Huan's house, everyone invited an exorcist. Then he started the ceremony outside the 3 ladies' temple. Each effigy had the names of the children and their birth dates written on it. After the ceremony, the exorcist asked someone to burn the effigies and then instructed everyone on what to do. From that day on, the image of those 3 women no longer appeared in the lives of Leo and his friends. Perhaps that was one of the most foolish times in Leo's life. Even now, every time he remembers that story, the corners of his eyes suddenly sting. When did Leo come back? Are you coming back or not? I'll take you home. Leo was still standing in front of the Barco temple, reminiscing about the past. Hearing the voice of his friend Ted, he turned around in surprise. "Yeah, I just came back. I'm here to burn incense for Barco. Can you take me home?" "Okay, get on the bike. I'll take you." Then the bike gradually moved away from the temple, leaving behind the painful past that still lingers in this land. And that is also the end of today's story. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's story. If you have any thoughts or feelings, please feel free to share them with us in the comments below the video. Your support is the greatest motivation for David and his team to work hard and bring the best quality products. We will always try not to disappoint you. Please continue to accompany us in the next episodes. Have a good night's sleep and see you in the next mysterious stories. Good night, everyone.